They laughed when she married a simple mountain man. But he was the heir to a hidden fortune. The village of Marrow Creek sat on the edge of nowhere, where the roads ended and the mountains began. Clara Whitmore arrived there one spring morning, her luggage dusted in road grit and her heart carrying more weight than her hands could. She'd come from the city, Boston, a place of candlelit salons and whispered judgments. Her father had died leaving debts that could swallow a lifetime, and her mother, frail and bitter, had told her plainly, "Marry rich or fade poor." Clara didn't marry rich. She met Elias Rowan at the edge of a stream while trying to find her way to an inn. He was repairing a wooden fence, his sleeves rolled, his face shaded by a wide-brimmed hat. He looked up, squinting against the sun. "You're lost," he'd said. Not as a question, but a quiet truth. And somehow, in the months that followed, she realized she'd been lost long before she ever came to that mountain. Elias lived simply, a cabin, a garden, a small herd of goats. He spoke like a man who didn't waste words. He read the Bible at night but never preached. When he smiled, it was brief but deep, like a candle lit in darkness. He took Clara to the ridge one morning, showed her where the mist rolled down the valley like silk. "This is all I own," he said softly, "and all I'll ever have." Clara felt peace there, the kind that money and marble halls had never given her. When he asked her to marry him, he didn't kneel. He just looked at her the way the mountains looked at the sky. Steady, eternal, unshakable. She said yes. Her friends from the city heard of it and came to the wedding, some out of pity, others for the gossip. They wore satin gloves and snickered at the rough-hewn benches and wildflowers tied in string. "She could have married a banker," one whispered. "Or a lawyer. Now she'll spend her days milking goats and smelling of smoke." But Clara didn't care. As the vows were spoken, she felt the earth itself listening, the old mountain wind carrying their words somewhere sacred. Elias slipped a simple silver ring onto her finger. It had no gem, just a single engraving inside. "To the one who sees." The laughter of her friends followed her down the hill that day, but so did the echo of something older, something waiting. Life with Elias was quiet, filled with rhythm and work. They woke before dawn, fed the animals, and sometimes he'd take her to a cave near the ridge. He said his grandfather used to go there when he was a boy. Inside, symbols were carved into the stone, old and nearly erased by time. Elias said little about his past. All Clara knew was that he'd been raised by his grandfather after his parents died in a fire. When she asked about his family, his eyes would turn distant, like he was looking through fog. One evening, as rain lashed against the windows, Clara found him sitting by the fire, holding an old brass compass. It was engraved with the same words as her ring. "To the one who sees." "Where did that come from?" she asked. Elias hesitated. "My grandfather said it points not to north, but to truth." He turned it in his palm and the needle spun, not steady like a normal compass, but almost alive, trembling toward something unseen. Clara felt a shiver, not of fear, but of fate. Weeks passed. The rains grew heavier. One morning a carriage arrived from the city. A man in a black coat stepped out. His name was Mr. Avery, lawyer for the Whitmore estate. He brought news. Clara's father's debts had been bought out by an anonymous patron, and the remaining land in Boston was now hers free of claim. She was stunned. Who would do that?" Avery smiled faintly. The signature was unreadable, just an initial, R. That night, Clara asked Elias if he knew anything. He looked at her for a long time, then shook his head. "No," he said softly. But his hand gripped the compass too tightly for her to believe it. Then, one dawn, he didn't come home. His footprints led up the ridge, through the pines, toward the old cave. Clara followed, the air biting with cold. Inside the cave, she found him kneeling before the carvings, the compass glowing faintly in the dim light. When he saw her, his eyes filled with a storm. "I didn't want you to find this yet." "Find what?" she whispered. He placed the compass in her hand. "The truth my blood hides. Before she could speak, he pressed her fingers over the needle. It spun wildly, then pointed toward the far wall, toward a stone shaped like a door, and with a sound like thunder it began to move. Behind the stone was a passage, narrow and damp, leading deep into the heart of the mountain. Elias lit a lantern, and the light fell on carvings, names, symbols, and finally, a crest, a golden stag crowned with stars. Clara had seen that crest before, in old books, in city halls, even on the seal of a bank once owned by her father's employer. "The House of Rowan," she breathed. "But they died out a century ago." Elias's voice was quiet. "No, we vanished." He told her everything as they walked deeper into the chamber. The Rowan family had once been among the richest in New England, owners of iron mines, shipping fleets, and vast lands. But when greed and blood feuds tore the heirs apart, his great-grandfather fled into the wilderness with a single child, the fortune sealed behind the earth, hidden until a true heir would return with a heart uncorrupted by gold. That compass, Elias said, was made to guide that heir, but it never pointed for me. "Until you came," Clara stopped. "Me?" he nodded. "You saw me, not the dirt, not the poverty, not the gossip. You saw me. That's what the old words meant, to the one who sees. Only love that sees through the surface can awaken what's buried." The tunnel opened into a vast chamber. Lantern light glimmered over walls lined with gold bars, jeweled boxes, and chests bound in iron. It was a hidden treasury, silent, untouched by time. Clara couldn't speak. The air itself felt sacred. Elias turned to her, eyes filled with something between sorrow and awe. "Now you know why I never left this mountain. It's not mine to take, it's ours to protect." She reached out, touched his cheek. "Then we'll protect it together." Years later, Marrow Creek changed. The laughter that once followed her name turned to reverence when the town mysteriously began to prosper. Schools were built, roads paved. Hospitals opened, all funded by anonymous donors. No one knew where the money came from. But on quiet evenings, when the sun slipped behind the peaks, a woman could sometimes be seen standing on the ridge beside a man in a wide-brimmed hat. They'd watch the valley below where the village lights glimmered like gold. And those who passed by would whisper, "They laughed when she married a simple mountain man, but he was the heir to a hidden fortune."